There we go. Okay, so we're here today with Dr. Don Clum, who I've known for a while, quite a while actually, because we met in a student conference many years ago. That's all.
Yeah, great way to put it. That's all we need to say. Back in school.
Many years ago, who graduated a nutrition degree as his undergrad from Life Atlanta, and then did chiropractic through Life West,
Yeah.
and then practice and into a lot of travel. And currently, the discussion we're going to have today is about fasting, because there's so much information out there about fasting. And Don is in the middle of a mass fast at the minute, which I'll let him explain. So hello, Don. Nice to see you.
Hey, Mary Ellen. Great to be here. Thank you for the invite. So yeah, we do. We go back a long time. That's
Yeah.
we're starting to think about that. It's a long time. Glad to say that we've stayed in touch that long.
Yeah.
So yeah, fasting, right? If you want to start with that, that is a topic. It's amazing to me how the human mind, and this is everybody, can complicate something as simple as not eating so much. And I think where the complications come in when people try to make it easier or try to make it something it's not, or try to change what that natural process is. Then the other side of the equation, it has gotten more complicated. I've been doing this for a long time now, over 15 years. But now with the rate and the amount of medications people are on, it plays a big variable. So, either people trying to make it easier for people to the point it doesn't do much, or not taking into account the other conditions or medications. That's what seems to be what makes it clinically harder than it used to be. But the concept itself, fasting, is the intentional abstention from food. You're choosing not to eat, right? A lot of people say, oh, you go into starvation mode. No, starvation is very different. No one chooses to starve, right? Someone's either captured or has a circumstance, and that's how they get to starvation. And that's a pathological state. We're not even talking about that. Fasting is no more starvation than drinking water is drowning, right? It's just not. It's very different. So keep that in mind as far as that goes. I'm in a fast now. I'm running a 30-day fasting challenge. So people in there doing whatever they want. They don't have to do. I'm doing 30 days. Today is day 22, but there's only a couple of us doing that. The goal was to get people to join and commit to learning and trying and doing and asking questions, all focused for 30 days on fasting. So that's what it was about, and it's going very, very, very well with that. So have you tried fasting yourself?
Yeah, I've done 30-day fasts, and I've done no, I haven't done 30-day, 3-day fast.
I was going to say, I'm talking to an elite expert here.
30 days, because I don't know how I'd manage for 30 days. I think that's astounding. So no, I've done a 3-day one, which has been really great. And then I've done other ones where I've done intermittent fasting. So my chronic way of being is 12-12. And I've been trying to figure out how to do a 24, because with my work schedule and other than eating purely raw foods, that's not going to work very well. So I've just been trying to figure out how to do it, and maybe just doing it on 3 days when I'm not in the office with patients, or, trying to work it out. I've very intermittent fasting a lot, but I've never done a 30-day fast, which I find astounding. So can you just tell me like the difference between like intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
which is shorter periods of fast where you're eating for a short period and then not eating for a period
Yeah,
consistently?
we would call that there's different eating models that have now been called fasting. Intermittent fasting used to be a full day fast scheduled out over a month, year, or some on and off, right? That's why it's intermittent. This whole daily shrinking your thing, that in the research in the fasting world, that's called time restricted eating, right? You're restricting your time to those 8 hours or whatever that is, and then you're not eating the rest of the time. So it's not only recently has it been called fasting, but that's what that is. And then there's also something called delayed onset eating. That's when you basically skip breakfast. And so our culture, who's busy, at least in the States in particular, are very busy in the morning and can't get it together to have a meal, end up eating late, and then later, starting later and ending later, but it ends so late that their 8 hour window automatically cuts off. They go, oh, look, I'm fasting. I'm like, well, that's not exactly the same thing, right? You have to plan to fast, because the benefits of fasting come from the whole process, not just from the fast. There's 4 phases of a complete fasting cycle. The prep and planning, which is very important. especially if you're going to do a long fast or you want to get good at this. This is like training for a competition in sports. You don't train, you're not going to even be there, right? And then number two is the support. There's things you can do to support just before, during a fast, and after. We call them crutches. Some of them are crutches where they help you bend a fast versus break a fast. So instead of ending it abruptly because you're frustrated, you have some things you can do to keep it going and get past that point and continue with your fast. So that's the fast. And then the last phase is the reinforcement phase. This is how you break the fast, the 3 to 5 days after the fast, and you're planning before your next fast. Because fasting isn't an event by itself. It is a lifestyle. It is a process. You need all 4 of those phases, because the real magic, the healing, so to speak, the rejuvenation, the stem cells, the anti-aging, anti-inflammatory, all of that really hits us when we start eating again. It's programmed from the time we're not eating. The body takes inventory, and I can go through that and sets up its list of what it needs. It gets fulfilled when we start eating again if we do it right. But we can easily mess that up and lose all that programming that we just spent, a lot of effort fasting to get, right? Some people I see online, they say, oh, 3 days done. Finally, first time I'm going out for chicken wings and pizza. I'm going, oh, all right, you're just going to lose everything. Because part of the benefit when we refeed is the body creates all these massive brand new stem cells that are just like, they're gold. People pay a lot of money to freeze them and inject them and do all these different things with just the hopes of some of them staying. We can make trillions of them, and they can get into the tissues. They can actually make new brain cells or connections. They can heart cells, skin, liver, any part of the body that needs it, it can start to replenish it. But there's no guarantee those will stick, right? If we don't give them a nice working environment, they will bail. And we can go through all those stem cells in a matter of days that we just spent the time fasting to create. So it's a whole process. And the magic comes from the regular application over time of flexing your metabolic system in a fasted state. I believe we are genetically required, or at least genetically expected, to fast throughout our lifetime at different times. Our genome was developed that way. There's mechanisms of healing in our body that won't be turned on unless we do it, because we've always done it. It's there and expected. We just don't do it anymore. And that's part of the breakdown and process of chronic disease. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah.
interesting too, because the timing with work and stuff like that is tricky. So sometimes it's easier to do it when you're not going to be so flat out with work. But then I also think, coming from my perspective as a parent, I have 2 girls, and all the messaging and all the rest of it about don't eat, and all the rest, the negative programming around food. So it's, when they see me doing fasting stuff and see it, I'm not eating, I have to keep explaining to them, it's like, it's not that I'm not eating. I'm actually actively fasting and choosing to do this for this reason, and I find it's tricky, because with young kids, especially, you want them to have some breakfast before they go to school, because they're not going to be eating properly all the way through. And then school doesn't give them enough time to eat anyway. So they shove down their necks what they can. And then they're home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depending on sport. So there's a lot of different negotiations there. But with the girls in particular, they follow what their parents do, don't they? So if the parents don't eat breakfast, they don't eat breakfast. They just have
that's the difference between doing a weight loss gimmick or fad workout type thing, or making a lifestyle change. My family, I've done this is my second 30-day fast. I'm doing it for 14 days, 12 days, and everything behind it. They know now. I mean, we have these discussions. They know. My son came to visit me for part of his spring break while I was in the middle of this fast, and I just told him, and he knew it. And we went to amusement parks, went fishing. We cooked for my rest of my family together. And it's just, there's no weirdness there. And he understands why. Doesn't want to do it. That's cool. I'm not asking him to, but there's no friction or weirdness now with me, because it's been explained, it's been incorporated. And kids, they often want to try, especially when they're younger. They're like, I want to do what you're doing, mommy. And you can let them try. They don't get too far, and that's fine. It's the fact of trying and being proud of what they did. And it's cool. Like my first long fast, my kids were younger, 3 of them all in the house, and they all wanted to do something. I think my oldest, my daughter, she lasted till dinner. and the middle son lasted till lunch, and then the youngest little one, I think he got through snack. I don't know, but they set the intention. They were trying to, they're showing support. They're trying something new. The outcome wasn't the goal, so it feels good as a person going through it. Because another thing is, you start telling people you're looking into or trying to fast, who knows what's going to come back at you. People have these reflexive negative responses, as if you're trying to tell them they can't eat or something, and they'll just say the weirdest things. I have people tell me that since I work in this, that I'm killing people with these programs, and that I'm ruining my immune system, and that all this kind of stuff. And I'm just going, whoa. So some people might choose not even tell anyone outside their immediate family because of that. I have shirts that say, sorry for what I said while fasting, right? And I had another one made up. It said, do you even fast? And on the back, it says, you start by shutting your mouth. Just because I got tired of people saying crazy stuff, right? Just like, here, read the shirt. I'm, doing that. But there is a cultural.
Yeah, there's a big cultural issue with it. And I'm just going to go back to the kid thing, because when do you think it's appropriate, if at all, for children to be introduced to fasting?
It's always appropriate. You have to modify and navigate that kid, that individual. So if there's weight issues, if there are blood sugar issues, if there are any kind of issues going on, you need to consider that, right? And you got to look at it. You got to look at the age. You got to look at, their performance. Have they hit puberty yet? Are they going through puberty? Is it post puberty?
For me,
all those kind of things. But it's so ingrained in our system. The kid's not going to get hurt, right? A lot of parents will say, my kid just ate this junk, but it's better than nothing. I'm like, no, actually nothing would have been better than that junk. I like to joke. I say the healthiest meal the average American gets is the one they skip, right? Because it's coming all from their body. There's not more junk being put in. And so the idea that kids can't fast, no, they're not going to do a 30-day fast. Like I said, there's all sorts of ways of fasting. For most kids, if you just get them to stop snacking, you'll start to see a metabolic improvement, just like adults, right? We by feeding constantly, we're in the fed state, the fed metabolic state all the time. We don't get into that fasted state in and out throughout the day, and it runs down our system. And it's a hormonal issue. It messes with our hormones, and the primary hormone is insulin, right? Insulin is the master hormone, because insulin decides whether we use energy or store it. That's life or death. So that's like the highest ranking hormone we have, and everything else follows suit. So if you've got insulin constantly on screaming around all day long, all night long, as these kids are developing these other hormones coming out, they come out hindered. They don't have the free interaction that they normally would. They don't have the synergy and and you see all sorts of different changes with that. Never mind the weight gain. Never mind type 2 diabetes is growing the most in 0 to 5-year-olds. So, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of issue there. But so yes, they can. Pregnant women, can they fast? Yes, they can. I'm not telling anyone to. Don't get me in trouble. But there are ways to do it for gestational diabetes or just after birth. All sorts of different reasons, because you can adapt a fasting protocol to anybody according to what they need in their situation.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, particularly with post pregnancy and breastfeeding and stuff, I don't know, I would have struggled a bit with that, I think, because I was starving all the time when I was breastfeeding,
And that's also hormonal, right? Hunger is hormonal. Satiation is hormonal. Weight loss, weight gain is hormonal. All of it are, it's all comes back down to that cascade of those primary hormones. If you're hungry all the time, acute hunger is really aberrant. That if we got distracted or brain fog or confused or tired or headache and couldn't function every time we skipped a meal or a day of food, we would not have a species. We'd have been gone a long time ago. When you measure the body's response in that, the body does the opposite. As soon as we get to a point of recognizing we're not eating, it turns things up. Our attention gets focused. Our energy actually goes up. Our metabolism actually goes up when we're not eating initially, not down. Why? Because the body's going, okay, got it. No food for a while. Let's go find some, right? And it starts to turn on these different things. And like any stress, that's the response to good stress. When you exercise, the same process. It's a very similar process in the body. When you learn something new, when you learn a language or a math equation, or even have an emotionally intelligent conversation with someone, all these same things. It's a use stress. It's a challenge stress. It's a growing stress. It's what'll keep us alive and healthy. So it's a good thing.
That's good. What do you think, like, just for somebody who's never done a fast before, what are the key benefits that they're going to get out of doing a fast, whether they're normally healthy or whether they've got an autoimmune thing going on, which we're seeing a lot of at the moment. So, is there a couple key points that you can just outline that in terms of fasting is going to benefit? Like, I look at you, and having known you a long time, I think many decades later, you look younger than I've seen you look for a long time. You look so well.
Thank you. That's the fasting glow. I wish I could keep this forever. I can't. I've been doing videos for the lessons of this program, and we're going to have a quick time lapse when we're done. And I wasn't in a bad spot when I started, but it's just, you can't, it's just the fasting glow, skin, eyes, hair. My face gets thinner than I didn't even know possible. So far I've lost just over 21 pounds in 20 full days so far. That's actually the most the quickest I've lost that kind of weight in a big fast before. So I think I really came into this fast very well prepared. I did a prep and planning for 3 months. I didn't know we were going to do the 30 days. It kind of came up abruptly, but I was preparing to do something. So I really was rolling into it ready. I mean, and that makes a huge difference, because people won't believe this when I say it, but I'm going to risk saying it anyway. Since day one, I have not had any of the fasting issues or symptoms that people complain about that I've even had in the past. I didn't get hungry. I didn't get nasty. I didn't have emotional eating. I didn't struggle with food at all. I didn't have any problem sleeping. I'm actually sleeping better than I have ever in my life now for the last 12 days with this. I haven't had dips in energy. I haven't had any shakes or anything that people get. I don't even have the cold. Usually when I do a longer fast, you get that deep root, women know this feeling, that deep rooted cold, especially hands, extremities, that it's not about getting a blanket. It's like you got that, it feels like the core body temperature or something has gone down, but it didn't, but it's a sensation thing. I haven't had any of that. And I was waiting for it because I know that feeling. I don't like it, but it just hasn't happened. So I think that comes down to, I've been doing this for a long time on and off, like training for exercise over a long time. And I was in metabolic shape for it, but I also did very specific planning before I rolled into this one. And I've had no problem. Like right now, I feel like I might've eaten 3 hours ago. So there's no hunger. I'm not thinking about food, but I'm not full either. And that's how it's felt the whole time. And then after day 12, that's when the mental clarity stuff really starts to click in, and the focus and the drive and follow through starts to come together. And it's just amazing process. So it just depends on, so if someone's never done it, that was your original question, my long answer. If someone's never done it and they're not doing anything in particular with their diet, the first thing to do is just shift your eating to 3 meals a day. That's it. Okay. No magic times, just no snacking in between. Take all the food you would, don't have to change anything yet, and just put it in eat 3 times a day. That's it. Nothing outside of that. Do that for a week. You'll see a shift right there. If you've been eating all over the place, you might even lose weight right there. I've done studies in population health with these different techniques, and people will lose, over the course of 12 weeks, can lose 60 pounds just doing that, depending on where they start, right? So that's step one. And then the next week, start to eliminate things that would drive a big hormonal response, mainly insulin. So starting to cut sugar dramatically, and things like grains or anything from a powder. It includes protein powders and stuff like that. I want to get those out. And so now you're moving in, and then maybe you 3 days a week, you skip either a dinner or a breakfast, right? So once you got 3 meals a day going good, you're off the sugar, you got rid of the powder-based foods. Now you're dropping 2 breakfasts and 1 dinner spread out. Cool. You're training. Your body needs the variable in the beginning, the change, the use stress to adapt and get you going. As your insulin goes down, you'll watch hunger cravings start to go, and cravings start to go down. Eventually, you'll watch emotional eating disappear, because it's a symptom. It's a symptom, not the driver. That's a whole nother show we can do on that.
The first 24 hours it's a total head game.
Well, yeah, well, that's another thing.
Hey, anyway, like it's like, I'm like, I should be eating. Why aren't I eating? I should be hungry. And
or the opposite. Everything someone feels is like, oh, my ankle hurts. Is that because I'm fasting? Oh, is that hunger over here? When I fast, I got 2 flat tires this week. Is it because I'm fasting? It's like, oh my gosh. So, and that's where practice comes in. Yeah. Eventually, you always think that thing. We overanalyze it, and then suddenly we feel things that we would have felt anyway. Now suddenly we're thinking it's really an interesting process. But practice helps with that. And so try to detach from that. I tell people, even if you fasted before, if you prep and go into it differently, come at it neutrally. You don't have to think it's going to be great. You just don't think it's going to be the way it was. Give yourself the space to have a new experience each time, and you'll be surprised at what shows up. A lot of times we will jump the gun and stop a fast off of an impulse of, because of based on something we felt before, or we say, oh, I feel kind of weird right now, it's going to be like that the whole time. Nothing works like that, but that's what we think. And so just watch those. So yeah, 3 meals a day, eventually skip one of the things, then roll into a full day fast. I'm not a fan of 24-hour fasts. 24 hours isn't a full day when it comes to fasting. 24 hours, like people do, dinner to dinner the next day, that's 12 hours of 2 days. That's not one full day. So if you stop dinner here, fast the entire day, and then eat again at breakfast, wherever you eat the third day, that's a full day. And if you do it right, you can get 35 to 42 hours out of it, but it only feels like one day. When you're really focused on dinner to dinner, all you think about is the last dinner and the next dinner. And it just, people have the adherence rate goes down dramatically, But when it's just a whole day, it's just one day. Never mind, it could be 42 hours, almost 2 days, but you don't think that. And you get to sleep 2 sleeps. So you get to sleep through a lot of it. Use that in your favor. So that you move to that. So maybe you do that once in a week, then maybe twice with a day in between, like a Monday and a Thursday. And you start to work up to it. You make it a little bit, and you take note of everything that you experience and see and watch how it changes and watch how you can support it and things like that. If you really want to get the full benefit out of fasting, you want to make sure you're off caffeine probably a good 5 to 7 days before you fast. Because if you try to fast and come off caffeine, good luck to you. That's hard. That's really hard right there. But you just do it. I said my program is 6 months, right? There's a reason it's 6 months, not 6 days or 6 weeks. And we work our way up, and then we work back down. So it's like training for an event, then off-season training, then going to another event. You're just going in and out of that. And those people who do that at the end of the year, they have a net result of great shape and stuff like that. That's what we want. Because the problems that we're going to go through, that we're trying to work with, or that'll come up in fasting, they didn't show up yesterday, right? This is a lifetime of thing. And most of the symptoms and negative reactions are detox reactions. And things coming out of us, not because you're fasting, it's because we're loaded with junk. That the recycling process of the fasted state, that's what it does. It takes it out, and you can feel it. But the more of that you clear out before you go in, the less of that you'll have at that moment of fasting, and the less intense it'll feel, right? Unfortunately, I don't know if you want to hear this, the number one detox reaction coming out is from a very common eating style. Do you want to go into this?
Yeah, go on.
Oxalates. Drive so much of our detox. We start detoxing from them in 3 to 5 hours. So why is that a big deal? Because oxalates are in plant foods, right? And people always say, "Oh, that means that." I'm like, hey, look, eat what you want, but I'd rather know everything that's in it than not. Oxalates build up in our body from that plant food over a lifetime, and they just come flooding out, and they create the cold, the jitters, the energy, all these different things. And so, there's different ways to prep and plan. If you're willing to do it, I would cut back on the plant food, especially fiber, especially as you get closer to the fast as well, just so that you don't get into distress as you go through it.
Yeah, that is a big thing, especially I'm vegetarian. So that's a big one that I have to really
women tend to have
really, really well.
Women tend to have more reactions than men. Why? Because they eat by volume to body size. They eat way more plants than men do. Their hormonal organs are bigger and more sensitive. Thyroid is twice as big in a woman than a man. Their digestive system is more reactive. Women have 10 feet more intestines than men do. We still have the same stuff, but it's not the same size and structure, right? And insulin drives the other hormones. Insulin, you mentioned this before the talk, insulin is the major foundational contributor to problems with the initial menarche. So PMS, endometriosis, PCOS, and eventually menopause all grow on a foundation of insulin dysregulation. It's all started with that. And so when you can get that under control, those things don't have a ground to grow on, and you just don't get them. But if you approach it from the hormone side, once it's there, you're treating from the other end, you're never gonna change it. You might feel better for a little bit, like with hormones, but eventually they backfire and you get bigger problems down the way. So you had mentioned the menopause concept.
Yeah.
The severity of hormonal symptoms, and in this case, PMS or menopause, they are magnified through your level of insulin resistance. If you go in there with low to no insulin resistance at all, menopause is not even much of a thought. Some cultures don't even have words in their language for it, right? It's not a big deal because of the way they go into it like that. If you're very insulin resistant, and that's already a very stressed hormonal system, and then a big change like menopause comes in, you get an exaggerated response from all of that, right? The same process is going on. It's just how big is your magnifier for the negative stuff that you have in your body? Does that make
Well,
sense?
and that's what worries me, because I mean, there's a big push here to get every woman who has any sort of menopause reaction or symptom on HRT. And it's like a one size fits all thing, because they're not even testing bloods, they're not testing urine. You know, you have to pay privately for that kind of stuff here, but because there's not a lot of really good female medicine here in terms of that. And I don't say that lightly. But
Well, it's too easy. It's too easy. We
it's too
can
easy.
isolate hormones and we can throw them at people and you'll feel it, right? It feels good. You know, we like hormones. Hormones drive our emotions, our likes, our dislikes, everything. And so we get it's like a little bit of a smoke and mirrors because, oh, look, I feel better. Great. You know, maybe if you had some, cocaine from the street, you'd feel better too. But doesn't mean it's helping your process. It's not just about how you feel. And when you introduce one hormone, without the process that would make it in your body, you disrupt all the rest.
Yes.
Because the hormone is the product of the process. The process is what drives the physiology. To just go and jump ahead and put the product in there without going through the process, all of this starts to fall apart. And everyone knows the example with men and testosterone, like bodybuilders. You go ahead and inject them with testosterone, the product, and you don't use that system to make it, that system breaks down. And in men, that means they stop producing testosterone, their testicles shrink up dramatically. Perfect example. That'll happen with any hormone. There's always a compensatory response. And the downstream effect of not having that process going is what causes the cancer, stroke, dementia in women later. But they get through menopause feeling better a little bit for a while. So it's very, very difficult. So if you want to address the hormones, you got to go upstream, because you look at it, sex hormones, they're made from DHEA, which is regulated by sex hormone binding globulin, which goes, and where's all roads lead back to insulin. You get that under control, you'll see a dramatic change. Now, if you have that under control for a while and you still have an issue, that's a good time to go look to someone to see about replacement. Because if it can shift on its own from these changes, these basic fundamental changes, then applying that hormone would be counterproductive and cause damage. If there's really an underlying issue after you've done that for a while, then then you're specific. Now you know it's an appropriate thing. Until then, you're just guessing and giving it to everybody. That's just, I can't believe they would even think that.
Well, and they do. And it does worry me, because in practice, I see some people it really works well for, and other people are really just thrown off the edge of a cliff with it. So I think the one size fits all that everybody needs hormone replacement therapy isn't true. And
everybody needs hormonal efficiency. How's that?
Yes.
That's what we need. You're right. Everyone needs hormonal
Yes.
efficiency. No one should need hormone replacement unless there's a very specific damage or reason.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's perfect expression for that hormonal efficiency. Yeah. And I think, and it's hard because we all have busy lives, and doing fasting and really going through this process, it takes a big commitment to do it. But it's a period of time where you change the total outcome of the next 30 or 40 years of your life.
Well, fasting is the anti-diet, right? It's a non-diet diet. So if you really want to look at it, it doesn't take extra time because you're not buying, cooking, doing for yourself at least. I get it with the family. I see what you're saying. So a lot of people think they have to
From
wait.
having to cook for everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've been doing that every day, cooking for family and stuff like that. I get that, and shopping. But the reality is if you're making it a lifestyle, all the things that we incorporate in a program around fasting, because that's just the backbone, right? There's other things. They're all things people are doing anyway, whether they realize it or not, because you're either sleeping or not sleeping. You're either moving or not moving. You're either eating or not eating. You're either thinking or not thinking already. All we want to do is line them up so they all point in the right direction little by little, so they work together towards our goals and they don't fight each other. Don't do too much too soon. And in a 6-month process, you want it to be a 6-month growing, compounding process that you learn it as you go, not 6 1-month gimmicks that you put back to back, right? Try this, try that, try this, try that. that you don't, if you do that, then at the end of 6 months, you have all the tools. You can make it part of your lifestyle to whatever degree you want. But you still have to do it, right? I take my hands off that point. I can't control what people do, but at least you have that opportunity and you've done it. You know how to do it. Give them a try. Got to try some things out and try them for long enough to really judge the outcome. Okay.
Yeah.
Try them for long enough to really judge the outcome.
So when people are looking at intermittent fasting, like the 12-12 or the 8-16, or one of the ones that's recommended for menopause is the 24, which I find incredibly difficult with work,
Well, you have to work up to that then.
A 4-hour block.
Yeah. You have to work up to that.
Do that at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, let's look at the research, the data. The data doesn't distinguish much between 10 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours. It really doesn't. All right. The reason the 8-hour came to life is because that was the time. It was 8-hour blocks they had in the lab. And so that's all they could test. Had nothing to do with the time. That's all a post-grad could get in there to do the work. Mm-hmm. So it's an arbitrary number. But as we look at it now with more studies, 8 to 10 hours, not a big deal. So if you want to start somewhere, I don't think you have to go to 8. You can go to 10, or like you said, 12 and push it back 8. And then 4 hours, though, over 4 hours is different than within 4 hours. Because if you eat over 4 hours, say 2 meals, that's metabolically more advantageous to eating 1 meal in that 4 hours. Yeah. Right. So you're looking at your time of eating, not just your window when you get to eat, because that's a different angle to look for the strategy. So for menopause in the 24, I think what they're doing is they're saying 24 and they're hoping to get 18.6 or 16.8. Right. Yeah. That happens a lot. They give you like when I do my programs, I want people to take walks every day for 5 to 8 minutes outside the whole thing. And I want them to do 5 to 8 walks a day. I'm really hoping they do 2 or 3, right? No one does 8. I get that, but you kind of, that's in these type of programs, behavior-based, you kind of overshoot. I don't think I've seen anything that's specifically for menopause or anything else that would say 4 hours is better than 8 or anything. So if because that's an intimidating jump for a lot of people. Start with 8 hours, once you get a groove, because for me, I kind of settle down in 4 to 6 hours naturally. When I come out of this, I'm doing a muscle rebuild because you lose a lot of volume, not muscle cells, but muscle volume, just like you do fat, right? Yeah. And so I'm going to put that back when I go. And when I do, I'll rotate between 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, full fast day in different order. But I'll have that throughout the 6 weeks as I work out. We're going to do a challenge with that and see what that might look like. But you don't have to do the same thing every day. If you're doing 3 meals a day and you go to 24 the next day, cool. That's even better. It's a variable. Keep the body guessing, even though it's not guessing. Remember, this genome is millions of years old, right? It doesn't care what we do every day, right? It's like, it's going to do what it's going to do. We don't have that much influence over the gene. It's kind of like a 90-year-old guy listening to the kid in high school going, interesting. Okay. The body sees us do something new and it goes, oh, that's cute. Whatever. Here's what we're doing. Right. So I bank on that because it knows way more than we do.
True. So if somebody wanted to was looking into fasting, obviously you're running programs and I can post stuff underneath the talk. Sure. But just the key benefits of it. What are they going to really get out?
All right. Here's what we're trying to go for when we fast.
What's the whole point of this?
Yeah. Okay. First thing happens. You say you stop eating at dinner. You get through, you go to sleep. You won't be in the fasted state for 2 to 8 hours after your meal. So just because you're not eating, you're not in that state. You have to burn off that fed state. So say you then just go to sleep, you wake up the next day. What starts to happen is insulin will start to drop down immediately. When insulin goes down, that allows growth hormone to come up and it'll start going up. Growth hormone will then turn off our body's breakdown mode. So we don't break down any muscle. We want to preserve muscle because we're not eating. And it turns on, and that's what turns on the recycling process. So you don't have stuff coming in. The body goes, okay, we gotta get efficient here. And it starts to recycle, goes through the roof. That's what they call autophagy. There's different phases, different types, how deep you go, but they're really talking about the efficiency of your recycling system. cleaning out broken pieces, dead cells, retiring cells that should have been gone, all that kind of stuff. Scar tissue, fat that's places not supposed to be, like the liver, the muscle, the brain, as in scar deposits, plaquing and things like that. So it starts to do all this stuff, and so the recycling goes up. And as you go through the day, eventually, because insulin is down, you're not eating, your hunger hormone will go down. In the beginning, if you've never done it, we get in our head. It's hard to tell if we're hungry or we're just overanalyzing, but you might go through that wonkiness. That's totally understandable. And then as you go through the day, your leptin hormone will come down, which is what makes you feel satisfied, right? And so you'll start to get this combination of less hunger, more satisfaction, even though you're not eating. If you follow, you're not going to feel full, but it's a calming effect. And as you keep going through the next night, oh, my niece is here. getting invaded. Hi, Kaya.
Hiya.
How'd you get back here? Good to see you. So you get all these hormonal changes, and then as you stay in that state, cortisol goes up, and people really misunderstand that. I think they have adrenal fatigue or stress issues. That cortisol bad. Cortisol is the solution, not the problem. Cortisol is the most powerful anti-inflammatory in the world, so it goes up. What you'll notice in the first day to 2 days, inflammation goes down acutely and dramatically. So that's what we want, right? That's what we want. So bye, Kaya. So that's what is exactly what we want. And so, but then it balances out. And as it continues, growth hormone will go up 300% over time. All these different changes, more cells will come out and more stuff will be broken down. And then what the body's doing in that moment, it's taking inventory. All right, we need new stuff in the liver. Oh, the skin's looking pretty rough. We need some of these cells. We need to do brain cells. We've been lacking there. So whatever it is, it does the inventory. Then when you end the fast, say 72 hours or 3 days, you eat quality foods with low insulin exposure, so meats or protein and fats, or very low insulin producing vegetables, or however you want to eat. You can do it any way you want, but then you roll that metabolism into how you're eating. So it's minimally, you want to stay in it the best you can. And as that food comes in, broken down to all these raw materials, flood in, the body makes stem cells from it, and they rush into your system and they repopulate those areas that need it, right? And then what also happens after 3 days is the immune system completely recycles. 100% of all the carriers, white blood cells, macrophages, all of them, totally brand new army gets put in there. So you get to actually create a new immune response just after 3 days when you refeed correctly. And you keep that going for a few days, and then you roll into whatever you're doing in between your next fast.
That's really good. And so, like,
and of course, there's weight loss, right? There's weight. Everyone, I'm sorry, I'd be remiss to say there's weight loss. People in the first 3 days, if you've never done it, don't be surprised you lose a lot of weight, right? People, when they do longer fasts, first few days, they could lose. It doesn't make sense how much weight they lose because there's fluid in there. There's things in there that shouldn't be in there that make us less efficient, that need to come out. People say, oh, that's just water weight. Yeah, thank God, because that water is part of what's screwing up the system just as much as the fat or more. So you want that out. And then the body fat comes. And like I said, I've had 20 full days of fasting. I've lost 21 pounds. That's a lot. Normally people can expect to lose 6/10 of a pound of fat and of tissue per day once they're in the full fasted state. So I'm a little ahead of the game. Maybe I had some extra fluid, I don't know, going on, but that's the pace I'm at now. And not only that, but you'll also notice your dimensions change first. Your dimensions change first. So your number on a scale might not change, but your pants will be fitting a little bit different. You'll see your video and you go, oh, well, look at my face. That's pretty cool. Or if you have rings, they'll start to fit different. You start to notice that. That's the inflammation. And that's a lot of stuff starting to shift right there. And also that's a good thing to keep an eye on, because like we talked about before, if you start to see dimensional changes before weight changes going the other way, that's a hormonal centric. Now we're talking a metabolic issue that's going on, which is often seen, like we said, in menopause and around puberty as well, for both boys and girls. They get that fluffy, puffy look to them, and that's a bad sign.
Yeah, that is a bad sign. When you say fasting as well, I just want to ask, so are you still drinking water? I'm assuming it's not a dry fast.
No, it's not a dry fast. Absolutely not. No, you don't. I experiment with dry fast up to 12 hours, but this is not that, right?
Okay.
When I'm talking about fasting, it's water fasting. Now we have our crutches. Some things we use as a crutch, like in my water, I put lemon. And I in the beginning, I use different salts and minerals for the electrolytes, but eventually I don't even want to taste them. I used coffee in the beginning sporadically. Now I don't even want to smell it. It's just your body just is a part of the process. Some people use bone broth. I couldn't even think about bone broth now, because when you do a longer fast and you know you're going that, those things, your body will turn those things off anyway. So if you start with coffee and some bone broth and some lemon, no big deal, because eventually you lose the taste for it. It's an amazing process.
Yeah.
And like now, honestly, if I keep feeling like this, other than dying, I could keep going for who knows how long, right? I'm really thinking about it, because there's no charge to it. There's no challenge to it any which way. If you can remove all of that, why wouldn't anyone do it? They would, of course. It's easy.
Yeah. But
But
again, like I said, for me, it's the head game.
oh yeah,
Once I get through that first 24 hours, like when I did a Thursday to Monday, the first 12, 24 hours, once I was through that, it wasn't a problem. And it was just like a normal day.
well, here's the flip side.
Yeah.
I know, even when I set the 30 days, I'm like, man, that's a bit. Do I really want to do this? I'm like, that's not just a 3-day fast. That's 30 days. And Easter and kid visit, it's never a good time, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay. So you set the intention, but one thing I know, no matter how hard it got in the first few days, I'm not going to die. I'm not causing damage. I will be uncomfortable. Okay, but I will get through it. And having done it, that's what experience is. Having done it before, I can say that. People that haven't done it before, they might overthink it, make it mean something. Oh, it's low blood sugar. Rarely is it really ever. It just feels like that. And just, they're not going to die, and you hold through it. And those feelings tend to shift pretty quickly. Cravings go away in like 18 minutes max. So by the time you can even get the food together, it's probably gone. Right. And just like urges, like in addiction, that it's not permanent. Nothing in the body is constant. Nothing, right? It's all cyclic. Happiness, we want it all the time. You can't stay there. It's cyclic, just like sadness. We want the low to be as short as possible, right? We want the highs to be as long as possible, but there's still going to be a cycle, just like the fed and fasted state. We want to be in the fed state a little and the fasted state a lot. Little fed, lots of fasted on a regular basis. It's a cycle. That's what we're trying to strengthen in this process.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I'll post some information in your information down below as well for anybody who really wants to kind of follow that up and get to know a little
Sure,
bit.
we have lots of free information. All the literature I've ever written, over 1,000 articles and stuff, and videos and stuff. They're in either my Facebook page or my personal one. They're accessible for free through those. The programs are different because there's structure. There's more to it. But I mean, if you just want to learn about this stuff, you don't have to let me know. Just go check it out and read up on it and see what resonates with you and ask questions. I'll be happy to do what I can.
Well, I love the idea of hormonal efficiency. And I think that, whether we're on the beginning age, being female, from the period's onset and seeing so many young girls with really severe period issues, using fasting to start to mitigate that hormonal efficiency rather than medications as a first go. And then on the other end of the scale with menopause, taking a look at, well, what can I do to help my metabolic efficiency rather than just automatically going to the one size fits all option. It just gives people different options to explore and puts the power back in their hands to look at what else is out there that can benefit real health from the inside out. And then if I need support along the way, it's all there for me, but I can take control of this first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what medicine was built on, an emergency model, and that's where they shine. But if you apply an emergency model to a chronic condition, it's fatal just as much as trying to apply a chronic solution to an emergency. It's fatal. It's just one takes longer, right? So they're there for a reason. You can always go to them, but it's usually a chronic thing. You have time to try these other things first, so you don't have to. And if you do, you do. And then you'll need less, and it'll be less complicated.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, thank you. That was really good. I've
Oh,
learned
thanks.
just through that time. And again, I'm going to keep using that expression, hormonal efficiency, because I just love that. I think
Yeah, I call the program the hormonal enhancement program.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And it just makes so much sense to kind of get your metabolic house in order, so to speak. So thank you.
Yeah, a good example I use is with men. They're all freaked out about their testosterone number. I'd rather see someone with a low number, high efficiency, than a really high number and low efficiency, because that is burnout. That he's going down soon, right?
Yeah.
But they just want to, more is better. Maybe not.
Maybe not. No, that's great. Thank you, Don. Thank you very much. I
My
might
pleasure.
back on to pick your brains about other things as well in the future.
All right. Anytime. I love talking to you. I love what you're doing. I'm glad we're still connected.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Mhm.